G'day. My family and I have now lived with quite a few of the current mid-size SUVs, and we've even proven that you can still manage mighty well with a small wagon. First there was the Tiguan, then the Escape, then the CX-5, and then the roomy CR-V, before we proved you can have your cake and eat it with the Golf R wagon. But what if the grass is even greener on the large SUV side of the fence? We've been living with the new Santa Fe for 6 months to find out. Now before I go any further, if you're after more detail than I mentioned in the video, make sure you read my full review on carsguide.com.au, and if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so you can stay on top of all our latest videos. We've chosen the Santa Fe as it's about the smallest of the large SUV crop, so it's fitting if you're tossing up between mid-size and large. And given Richard chose the middle of the range Elite as the sweet spot of the Santa Fe range at its launch, that's the one we've gone for. Fundamentally, this means it's got all the important safety gear for the front 5 seats, plus key features like the leather trim, diesel engine and all-wheel drive for around $55,000 on the road. As far as family practicality goes, the first handy detail is the big back door openings, with the door opening nice and wide. Two particularly big pluses for the Elite are these retractable window blinds in each door and a particularly dark tint to the window glass, so you don't have to use these ugly window socks to protect your kids from the sun. As you'd expect from a large SUV, and also as Nadal pointed out in our how-to videos, fitting my 2 child seats was a cinch thanks to these 2 ISOFIX points back here. It's worth noting though that there isn't really any more room in the front for passengers ahead of a rearward facing child seat in the Santa Fe, even though it rides on a longer wheelbase than the CR-V. There's also much the same cabin width between the 2 child seats, even though the Santa Fe is 35mm wider than the CR-V. So there's a good chance Grandma will fit back here, but she'll struggle to find a seatbelt and she will whinge about it. One really smart selling point for the Elite is the rear occupant alert function, which will detect if you leave either a child or a pet on the back seat and honk the horn at you if you try to lock the car. It also has the Safe Exit Assist system, which will detect oncoming traffic and prevent you from opening your door into it. Up the front, the Elite has every feature on my must-have list, with good ergonomics and big buttons that are well labelled for everything. The multimedia system and sat-nav are really quite good, but you're actually unlikely to ever use them because of the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity, which also thankfully integrates with the voice activation button. One feature we'd love to see on more cars is the ability to leave the reverse camera on all the time, which is great for when you load the boot to the point where you can't see out the back, and it's also really handy to keep an eye on your load when towing. As with the previous Santa Fe, the new one has all your cup and bottle holder needs covered, along with a whole bunch of really clever storage bins. There's also enough charge points scattered throughout the cabin to keep everybody happy. One of the biggest arguments for a large SUV has got to be for a bigger boot. But in the case of the Santa Fe, it's only marginally larger than the CR-Vs. It's definitely bigger though, and it gives us the opportunity to always have a porta cot on board, in addition to our array of 3 different stroller and pram options. One of the biggest learnings of our time with the Santa Fe is how that when you've got the 2 child seats fitted, it really makes the second row split fold useless. And if you want to use the 3rd row seats, you've got to get in via the boot, and it also means you can only use one of the 3rd row seats. We don't need the extra seats, thankfully, but it's worth keeping in mind considering kids stay in their child seats these days until they're about 7. Another important point is that the Santa Fe still doesn't offer proper airbag coverage for the 3rd row. They cover the glass area, but not the point where your head is likely to contact the car in an accident. How do you choose who sits in the 3rd row without airbags? Despite all this, the Santa Fe gets a full 5-star safety rating from ANCAP. Back on the positive side of the ledger, the Santa Fe continues to have a full-size spare underneath the boot floor, so you don't have to remove all your luggage to get to it, and unlike a lot of its rivals, you can continue on at the speed limit. We've covered just under 10,000 kilometres during our 6 months with the Santa Fe, and it's always just simply been a handy thing to hop aboard no matter what trip we had to make. It's stable and comfortable around town and at speed, even if you wouldn't call it sporty. You can tell that it's carrying around an extra 400 odd kilos over the CR-V we had, which is a fair margin considering how close they are in size. But also you've got to remember that the Elite is carrying around a heavier diesel engine and all-wheel drive mechanicals. This has been the first diesel we've lived with, so I was keen to see just how efficient it is in the real world. It hasn't actually set my world on fire, but it has managed about the same average consumption as the smaller SUVs we've had that had petrol engines. The number one benefit would actually be the 800 odd kilometres we've managed between fills of the tank, which is really handy when you've usually got two babies in the back seat. Compared to a petrol engine though, the diesel is a bit grumbly when it's cold or at slow speeds, and it's not particularly powerful. It's just fine on the open road though, but we wouldn't mind seeing the option of the turbo petrol engine you can get with the Santa Fe in the USA. As far as general ownership goes, we haven't done enough Ks to need a service, but Hyundai's 5-year warranty, service intervals and cap price servicing are among the best in the business. So, should you go for the smaller end of the large SUV segment with a Santa Fe over the upper end of the mid-size class with something like a CR-V? You probably don't need to, but more space, no matter how marginal, will always come in handy. The Santa Fe Elite has served my family well, and I'd happily park one in my garage permanently. However, I'd probably still choose the CR-V with the active safety pack for my needs right now. One more thing, if you're after more detail, check out the full review at carsguide.com.au and don't forget to hit subscribe to stay on top of all our latest videos.